I'm so excited to introduce you to my new friend Wendy. Wendy takes us on her personal journey where she not only experiences grief in one way, but a profound way with five losses. I don't know about you, but that's quite a few losses. I know we've talked about a few types of grief up until now, but this is called complicated grief. After so many types of loss, when they start piling on top of each other, they begin to become complicated grief. I want to thank my friend Rissa for introducing me to Wendy. Without people like you to introduce other people to me, to have these beautiful podcasts, I wouldn't have been able to introduce Wendy. If there's anyone that you know that would be a good fit for our podcast that has different views or has struggled with any types of grief or just has a special journey they want to share, please reach out to us. I want to give a special thank you to Wendy. It's not easy to put yourself out there on social media. It can be very vulnerable. So thank you so much for spending time with me, Wendy. I do appreciate all of your effort and everything that you did to share your journey with us. So here's Wendy's journey. Okay, so we are here with Wendy Clark. I am so happy to be able to spend this time with you today. Thank you so much, Wendy.
You're
Uh,
welcome. Thank you for having me.
yes. Wendy, why don't you start with, first of all, telling us a little bit about where you're from? We're coming from Utah. Where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Idaho, but I've been living in Georgia for the last 31 years. So that's where I'm now.
So, are you married? Do you have children? Tell us a little bit about your situation.
Okay, I am married. I have three children. My oldest is from a previous marriage, and I have my oldest is a son. He's teaches at BYU, Idaho. And I have two kids with my current husband. We've been married for 37 years. And we've got Danny, he's 35, and Rachel's 32, and they're both married. And I
Oh,
have
that's
eight
fun.
grandchildren as well from my oldest son. So,
Oh, so you get to be a grandma.
yes.
And Christmas is coming. Do you guys have snow there?
For the 30 years I've been here, we've never had snow on Christmas Day, but we'd usually get one snow day a year.
It's kind of how it is here in the Orem area that I'm in. It's not at all like Idaho. So,
Yeah.
well, today we're going to be talking about various types of grief with you, and there's a lot to cover today. So, I'd like to start where we kind of discussed a little bit earlier on the phone. So, why don't you start us where you'd like to begin? Go ahead and tell us a little bit about where you'd like to start.
I grew up in a small town. I loved how I grew up. I had two really loving parents. I had two older sisters and a younger brother, and I loved how I grew up. And then at 19, I got married. At 20, I had my son. It was a troubled marriage from the very beginning. I did get pregnant with the second child, but lost that child in stillbirth at about 7 months. That was my first experience with loss, was losing that child. And it was pretty devastating because getting pregnant, I took it as that we were supposed to stay together.
Yeah.
And then I lost the baby. And shortly after I lost that baby, we were getting divorced, and I moved back with my parents, going through postpartum with no baby and trying to find a job. And I had a 2.5, 3-year-old son. I kind of put the grief aside. I did grieve, but I had to keep going, and I was only 22 years old.
Yeah. Young adult is hard.
Oh, it is. Anyway. Um, but then my life, I led me to my current husband, and we had two children, and I have a wonderful life. I have an amazing husband. My kids are awesome. And about 20 years ago, my mother got cancer, and was a strong, out there, bold, adventurous woman. And she says, I'm not going down easy. So she fought for 3 years with the cancer.
What
Um,
kind of cancer did she have?
it's weird because it looks like it started in her lungs, but by the time they found it, it was everywhere. So they couldn't
Ugh.
pinpoint where it had started. But she tried experimental treatments, some prolonged her life and so forth. But it did kind of come to a point at about a year and a half, 2 years in, that she kind of gathers her and said, I'm trying everything, but I think this is a losing battle, and I don't want you to be caught off guard. She says, I know I'm going to go. I just don't know when. So, she was a very matter of fact, prepare yourself. I don't want you to go through, shock or whatever. This is going to happen. So, really started grieving her from the moment I heard that that she had cancer. So,
Yeah, they call that anticipatory grief.
oh,
I do
yeah.
hospice, and not to interject too much to stop you in your story, but I know a lot of children, maybe you went through this, maybe you didn't, but I know a lot of children can get really angry at their parents when they hear their parents say, I know my time is coming, or it's coming up, or I'm kind of getting worn down by these treatments. I think I'm going to back off of them. They'll get really angry and they'll feel like my mom's giving up, but really the body knows.
Yeah.
It sounds
No,
to me
I
like
was
you
never
weren't
angry.
there.
Yeah. The thing it was the hardest thing for me was they lived in Utah. I lived here in Georgia, and I
Mhm.
had a job and I had little kids, so it was hard not to be with her as much as I wanted to be. And she was, like I said, she was very not highly sensitive, sentimental. She was just very matter of fact, hardly ever said, I love you, was not a hugger. But after her diagnosis, she was all of that. She would not
Oh,
get off the phone or leave without saying, I love you, hugged us, put together a big Christmas get together reunion with my sisters, all of her grandkids, which was beautiful.
did it feel like you were saying goodbye every time you
Yes,
saw her? That
yes.
must have been hard, like, having a mom go from being a little bit I'm kind of like that, I have a bubble space, I call it, and then suddenly having her be super sentimental. That must have been hard.
It was hard, but it was another side of it was quite lovely to see
Good.
that my mom had that side.
I'm glad you appreciated that.
Yeah, I really did. Anytime I got with her, I did not waste it. I sat down
Mhm.
and I would talk to her and have her tell me stories about when she met dad or whatever, all those wonderful things. So it was a hard time because I saw it coming and I didn't want it to happen. My mom and I always got along, but we were never close until I moved to San Diego after the divorce. I'd met my husband and moved to California. She was there setting up. In those 3 years that I was there and she was there, we became best friends. I'm just really grateful that I got to foster that kind of relationship with her. I realized she was funny and and silly, and
She
I
was
just
human.
yeah, I never saw
Yeah.
that side of her. It was just awesome.
Yep.
So there's lots of things to be grateful for, but um, my ex sister-in-law, she's still a very dear friend, called me and she said it was near the end, and she said, I don't think you should put off seeing your mom. I think you should come out. So I did. I immediately came out, and I am so grateful I did. Um, it was a difficult time. It was heart wrenching to see
Was
her.
she on hospice? Tell me about.
She was on home hospice. She was at
Yeah.
home, but we had a hospice nurse come and administer her and get to do all the things. One night they had not calculated she had a pick line so that she could get direct pain meds.
Mhm.
And they had miscalculated the how much pain meds she would need. It was on the weekend, and when my dad realized that, it was a race to try to get the meds. You can't just go to the drugstore.
Yeah.
So Lisa, I'll never forget her. She was the hospice nurse. She goes, I'll make it happen as fast as I can. And it was about an hour of my mom in sheer agony.
Mm.
It was just the worst thing I ever seen. And Rissa was there, my ex sister-in-law. I'm not going to call her that anymore because she's my dear sweet friend. She
Who I
was,
love.
yeah, I know. She was there. She was so strong, and my mom was just in terrible, agonizing pain. And I just stayed on my knees and I just prayed, please, please let him come. And she finally came and she says, okay, she had the calm voice and calm down, and she got it under control. And that's when I had the realization, I don't want her to live like that.
Mhm.
And I saw that it was not going to be long. And this sweet hospice nurse said, here's the signs that it's near the end. The next day, I woke up and she was had a hard time communicating back and forth, having a back and forth conversation, just easily confused.
Mhm.
She was singing. Her favorite song was Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. So she
Oh,
was singing and she didn't have any trouble singing. And I said, Mom, are you feeling better? She goes, I feel great. You have to help her walk with her meds. And she goes, come on, sing with me. I mean, she was having this one day of, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's coming out of it. It's gonna be. And then I said that to Rissa, and she said, no, look at the pamphlet that the
called
nurse,
a rally,
yeah,
which
this-
is like a bittersweet if you know what it is. It's
yeah.
like a
As soon
moment
as
of
I read that, and I
clarity.
thought,
Yeah.
oh gosh, no,
And not
how
everybody rallies.
yeah, I
Oh,
was shocked. I
yeah.
thought she's on, oh, it's just one of her episodes and she's back.
Yeah.
But I got to be there for that.
Oh, that gives me the
Late
chills because I do hospice. And so those
and I live in
moments.
Georgia, so it was just I was just incredibly grateful that I got to be there for that. When I left to go back home, I knew I was and there was just dozens of what I called small miracles surrounding that time and the time around her death. But I said goodbye. The day I said goodbye to her, the pain meds were so heavy, she was pretty much asleep. But I said all the things. I said everything I felt and I kissed her hand. So again, who gets the honor and privilege of getting to say goodbye? You know, so I was for that. And there was just, I wrote it all down, all the little
Oh,
miracles surrounding because there were so many, I did not want to forget them.
that's amazing. So many happen.
Yeah, I call it 31 miracles because I started
Oh,
counting the miracles. And after I finished it, I didn't edit it. I didn't reread it. I didn't proofread it. I just didn't want to forget. So I just wrote it all down in my grief. Now, 6 weeks after my mom passed away, my oldest son was getting married. So I was devastated and crying every day, but all of my energy was on that. So I kind of put it to the side. And then I kind of got on with it.
2 weeks is not very long.
No, no.
No.
And I thought, am I doing this wrong? Am I grieving wrong? Why am I not? I mean, I was just, but I'd been grieving for 3 years. So that's what I chalked it up to. I thought, well, I knew this was coming. I'm not shocked. I'm not, I don't have to process it. I knew it was coming. Um,
Sure.
so I
You were
did,
rationalizing why you were doing what you were doing.
yes, yeah. So I sent all these writings about mom to my dad, and he called me and said, "This is beautiful. How long did this take you to write?" And I said, "Oh, I just wrote everything down in a couple of days." And he goes, have you reread this?" And I'm going, "No, I just didn't want to forget." He goes, "This is me to me than anything because there are things in here that you experienced that I didn't see, and that blesses my life." And he would, from that point on, he would say, "Oh, I read that the other day again, and I just love it." I mean, he was just so sweet about it. So that was
Oh,
kind of, you know, the long goodbye, my dad called it, was the long goodbye. And my mom was most concerned about my dad being alone.
yeah.
My dad is in sharp contrast to my mother. He is low key, chill, very soft spoken, very patient. He taught at BYUI, but he was also in the counseling center. So he was in it, essentially a therapist, a counselor. So, so
Now,
he,
when you say the long goodbye, do you mean the long goodbye with your father?
with my mother, 3
Okay.
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making
No,
sure.
but she was so concerned that because he was so low key and so laid back and so set in his routine. I mean, they traveled the world. They served 3 missions for the church,
Oh,
and it was all because mom said,
so
"Well,
when you say the church, can you tell us what church that is?
yeah, is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's the church I
Okay.
was raised in." Yeah.
Okay.
So they went to Africa. They went to
Oh.
Laos to teach English to medical professionals. They were not proselyting missionaries. Where I got to visit them. Well, that was a blessing. They were also went on another mission to China, teaching English at college there in Beijing, and that we got to visit them there as well. I mean, but it, my dad always said the only reason I get to do all this stuff is because I'm married to your mom. She says, Bob, I think it's time we go on a mission. Okay, yeah. I mean, it says he always went along, but it was always her that was the adventurous one. So she was that he was going to live another 20, 30 years alone. Um, he didn't. He found a very soft spoken, quiet, cute, sweet woman. Her name was Dolores, very similar to my dad, completely opposite from my mom. And we loved her. She was good for him. She was a good companion to him. So
How old was your mom when she passed?
she was 76 years old.
Okay,
It
so
was
he was
she had
older too.
yeah, yeah. He was 78. Yeah. Um, he fast forward a little bit, he sold mom and dad's house and went to live with Dolores, his wife, then at her house. I visited him several times over that time. She's taking really good care of him, and he was taking good care of her. It was really nice that my dad wasn't alone. Now, my dad was all about fitness from the time from as far back as I can remember. Always eating healthy, exercising. I never knew a day where he exercised except for maybe Sunday. He was the picture of health. He would say whenever he went to the temple with all the older men, they'd say, "Medicines are you on? And what medicines are you on, Bob?" And he'd say, "None."
Yeah.
He's never sick. He just took really good care of himself. He was very strong and healthy. Dolores did get dementia, and there did come a time in, I think it was, I can't remember the timeline, but oh, yes, I can. Beginning of 2020, there came a time when he had injured himself, slight injuries, trying to take care of her because she'd wandered off.
Mm.
So arrangements were made to put her in a facility for,
Yeah.
and then my dad, my brother and his wife who lived in Rexburg said, "Why don't you come live with us? Come back to Rexburg. You can, spend your days here." And so that's what he did. And so he lived with my brother from August 2020, which is great because all my brother, my sisters, my son, all the sons, all right there. So when I got to visit, I got to see my dad, but it was 20. So COVID was still a thing. He would ride his stationary bike 2 miles every day. If it was cold, I mean, he just really took good care of himself. And November of 2020, we went there for Thanksgiving. And it was amazing. My daughter was still there going to school, and we visited with him. He told stories I'd never heard before. My son and his oldest son came, and we got a 4 generations photo. It was an amazing time. I was really grateful, and I thought, I am so glad he lives here so I can see him.
Yeah.
And then in December, December
Just
21st,
right after?
yeah, about a month later,
Okay.
he contracted COVID. And he 6 weeks before that, his brother got COVID and was on a ventilator. And this is my uncle Dick. He finally said, "Take it out." And they're going, "Well, it'll be 24 hours and you'll be gone." And he says that's right. I want to go home and I want to be with my kids. I'm not going to go this way. So my dad witnessed this. So when he got COVID and got put in the hospital, without me knowing, he had signed a DNR, a do not resuscitate. No feeding tubes, no ventilator, nothing. And I knew it was bad, but I thought he's strong, he's healthy. He was 90, but he had just gone to the doctor 2 months before, and they said, "Well, for all intents and purposes, you're 70. You're the
Yeah.
picture of health." So The next day he went downhill. The nurse FaceTimed me so I could see him, and he did have an oxygen mask on, and he was slightly sedated, so his eyes were closed, but I got to see him when I said, "Hi, Daddy." He smiled, so I knew he could hear me. But the minute I saw him, yeah, it's been 5 years and it's still hard.
It's okay.
The minute I saw him, I knew he wasn't going to come out of it. So I said all the things. I told him what an incredible father he was, how lucky I was and blessed. I told him I loved him. I'm right there with you, Daddy. I'm right there with you. And he kept nodding his head and smiling. So I knew he could hear me, which was great. Um, and then they needed to administer him to, so we got off the FaceTime. And my first thought is, I need to get on a plane tonight. I need to get on a plane tonight so I can be there, because he was transported to a hospital that had these rooms where they would take terminal patients so the
Yeah.
feds could be with them in 2020. And I thought, I've got to get on a plane. But I didn't. Yeah.
Why didn't you?
Well,
I mean, it was COVID.
it
I
was
mean,
COVID,
I
and
get it.
but he, I'll book it for the next day. I don't know why. I thought, no, he'll last a little longer. I know he's going to go, but I don't know. The next morning, uh, my brother called and says he's going downhill, and I says, I'm booking a flight right now. I'm going to get on a plane as early as I possibly can. So I did. I packed. Um, I got My husband took me to the airport, and 5 minutes before I got to the airport, my brother called and said he was gone. So I have a mask on. I'm sobbing. It's hard to cry when you have a mask on.
It is. Oh, it is.
And I was going by myself, and here I
Mm.
am just crying in a public place with people around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, but I am terrified to fly.
Oh, dear.
So I have to take diazepam in order to get on the plane. So that's not good. I'm frightened and sad and exhausted. And I'm like, why the whole way there? Why didn't I get on a plane last night? I would have made it if I had gotten on a plane last night. Why didn't I do that? I am such a horrible daughter. All the negative talk. The regret was just almost as bad as the sadness.
Mm.
So I did get there, and so this is how it went. He passed away on December 23rd. I missed my connection in Salt Lake, so I had to stay with my daughter's in-laws for the night. Got all the way to Rexburg on the 24th and went to my brother and his wife's house. So it's Christmas Eve. My husband, my son, and his wife FaceTimed me and tried to, include me and cheer me up. The next day, Christmas Day, my brother and his wife had plans that were pretty important that they needed to go to, even though we just lost our dad. So I stayed in their house. They left. I was all by myself on
Oh,
Christmas Day. It was just the worst. And not only that, but I have two sisters, and my one sister lives in Utah, had been visiting my dad, and she went home and she had gotten COVID, and it was bad. It was so bad that a week later she couldn't go to the funeral.
oh, jeez.
It was just so she wasn't with me. My oldest sister, who lives there in Rexburg, we were on the phone. She was, dealing with things herself. And I just sat there and said, why didn't I get on the plane? Why didn't I get on the plane? And that one thought consumed me.
Oh, yeah.
So he'd already knew funeral he wanted, because his brother's funeral had just been 6 weeks before. He
Mhm.
says, no, no program, no musical numbers, just by the graveside, let anybody who wants to talk, talk. And it was freezing cold, but everyone was represented. My daughter, one of his brothers, one of his nieces, all of us got to talk the talk. It was really beautiful and simple and exactly what he wanted. So we'll fast forward again. The next 2 years, I was not working anymore. I didn't really have any responsibilities, empty nester. And my dad was my hero. He was my anchor, you know. I quite often would call him and he would counsel, and every once in a while I'd say, "Thank you, Obi-Wan Kenobi," and he would say,
Aw.
"You're welcome, my little Padawan," you know.
Oh, that's so
He
sad.
we would compare him to, Buddha, or, he was just
Yeah.
so
Little
wise.
Yoda.
He was way and one of those personalities where you're going to him with a problem and you discuss it. He never once said, "This is what I think you should do. This is the wrong way. You're doing it wrong." He would always guide, ask questions. Well, how do you think you'll feel if you do this way? And he was just so patient. And then he would have that one phrase at the end of the conversation that's like in every end of feel good movie that, like, yes, that's it.
It's my kinda guy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. He was just amazing. He was that way my whole growing up year. I never once heard him raise his voice. Not once. I mean, and he wasn't just a religious man, he was a deeply spiritual man. I just,
There's a
I,
difference.
oh my goodness. Anyway. So for the next 2 years, I had no motivation. I had no purpose. Every day I'd cry like it was the day I heard. And I'd do housework and then I'd binge watch something. And I did this for 2 years, just slowly but surely going downhill. I mean, it was bad. And I thought, seemed like I bounced back a little bit faster, with mom. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. My dear sweet daughter said, "Do you think you need therapy, mom?" And I'm going, "No, no, 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 no. It's just grief. I can deal with this. I've dealt with it before." Okay, she let me be. But it got so bad that I never did have suicidal thoughts ever, not once. But this was the conclusion I made after 2 years. And it was a pretty dark, I was all by myself in the house. And that is, this is who I am now. I'm not that outgoing, love people, adventurous spirit anymore. This is who I am now because I've lost my anchor. I've lost the person I go to. And so I don't have anybody to go to. So I guess this is what I'm going to have to tell my husband and my kids. This is just who I am now. It's going to be okay. I'm just not going to be the person I was. Somewhere in there, it's about 10 months after my dad passed away. I love doing community theater. They were doing Beauty and the Beast. I tried out, and the anxiety from it, I've never had a problem with anxiety until my dad passed away. And I thought, what does that have to do with grief? But
Yeah.
apparently it does.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got a part, very small part, but I had to force myself to go to practices. And I've always, yay, I get to go to practice. But I had to force myself. And I knew the people in the show and loved them. They knew what I was going through and so forth. And my spirits got picked up. And oh, this is helping me get out of it. Okay, we're engaged now. We're back in the world now. And then it was over. And I plummeted.
Yes.
Like, oh, that was just me pretending that everything's okay or distracting myself or whatever. So when it got to that dark thoughts of this is who I am until the day I die, my daughter grabbed my hand. She says, "Is it time yet for therapy?" And I said, "Yeah." And thank goodness she did.
Yeah, thank goodness. Thank her for me too.
Because I found on the first try, I found the perfect therapist. And I'll tell you, after she did the initial, all the get to know you questions and getting the background and everything, and I told her pretty much what I just told you, she said, "Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that you never stop grieving." And in my head, I'm going, "What?
What? That's the worst thing you could ever say.
Come on."
I know. I
She
do a
says,
grief group and I tell people that I'm like, you're never going to get over it. You're going to get through it, but you'll never get over it.
"Yeah, I mean, it came with time." And then she said, "I'll help you to learn to live your life with it." She
Yeah.
says, "But I can help you do that." And this wave of, "Oh my gosh, she can help me," was so,
Yeah.
I was so, okay. I believed her. And of course she has.
Happens to me
Anyway,
sometimes.
she taught me things, helped me see things so differently. And she helped me with the anxiety because that was overtaking me. I'm going, why am I experiencing this? She says, it's typical fight or flight thing when you've had
Yeah.
an unexpected loss. I said to her what I said to you when they both said the same thing back to me. I says, but he was 90. I wasn't going to have him for very much longer. And she goes, "No, that doesn't matter.
No.
He was he was an extremely important person in your life. That will never, it didn't matter if he was 500 years old. He
Yeah.
is still significant." So her validating that I was having these feelings, you know, and rightly so. So anyway, we made wonderful progress. As I said, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here.
Can I ask a question before you do?
Yes,
Where
absolutely.
where do you sit with the regret of not getting on that plane?
That was one thing that my therapist, her name's Rebecca, said. She says, "I'm pretty sure that's why you're stuck in this part of the grief,
Yes.
is your regret." Because every time I would talk about it, I would do the same thing. Well, I talked, well, why didn't I get on the plane? I should have got on the plane.
Mhm.
And then everything else. I didn't call him often enough. I didn't tell him,
Mhm.
why didn't I, all the regrets started coming in. So she helped me through those.
When somebody is passing away or has passed away, the one thing we don't have is control. And that's one thing you didn't do is gain that control. If I would have just gotten on that plane and had that little bit more control and you
Yeah.
lost that control. And that's
Yeah.
what triggers that anxiety. I've got to get to the play,
Yes.
anxiety, anxiety. And so when we often have somebody in a situation that we can't control, the first thing you're going to want to do is get control. And I tell this to people in hospice all the time. Your mom's laying in this bed passing away. And so all she can do is yell at you because she can't get out of bed and do anything else. And she just wants to control everything but the things she can control. She can't do anything else. So that's why I wondered how you'd processed since then and progressed.
Yeah, that's pretty much what my therapist said as well. And she says, and you're trying to find a way, you were trying to find a way to have some control over that, even though you knew that he was going to go. There was
Mhm.
nothing you could do to stop that.
Yeah.
And I have moved through it. I do not have any more regrets about that because quite often my dad had such a soft, calming voice. I can hear him in my head.
I wonder what he says to
He
you.
counseled me all of my life, and all those little nuggets of wisdom will
Yeah.
come and say, well, if having regret would, make you feel better, go ahead and feel it.